This is Real People, Real Stories. The purpose of these interviews is to uplift, motivate, and encourage. And remember, these are real people with real stories. It's not your story or mine, it's their stories and their testimonies. God first and overcome by testimony.
Check. I get wins, no days off. I don't stop.
Let me ask a question on that briefly. When Suge did go to prison at right after the murder of Tupac, and
the MGM when he kicked that guy, he was on probation in the lobby of the MGM Grand in Vegas, and everything was obviously on security cameras, and that ultimately broke his probation, and he went to prison.
Now, where did the gentleman the guy Reggie Wright Jr. Is it true he took over operations at Death Row after Suge was in prison?
Yeah, he kind of ran the label. Michelet was involved because she had a child with Suge. It was very messy because initially Dre had produced Michelet, and they had a little relationship. And Suge was always trying to get back at people. So when Dre left, he's now with Michelet and many other women, and they had a child together. So she was kind of involved, and Reggie Wright being kind of the security guy, he was a good guy as a liaison between Suge in prison and trying to keep the label together. I mean, Snoop had left by then. Dre left first. Dre was the first one to go. So there wasn't really much there, but they had a bit of a catalog, and there was income coming in. And of course there was the situation of these Tupac masters. Right. So it was very messy. It's very controversial. There's a new documentary right now, that's really spelling out Reggie Wright's potential involvement, with a lot of the downside of Death Row. A lot of people believe he wanted to take ownership of the label. And there's still so many questions as far as the assassination of Tupac. Keefe D is in prison now, and he spoke way too freely in a lot of interviews, and the feds are holding him to his word. So who gets implicated in that? And obviously there's stories that he had a deal with Sean Puffy Combs. So if you didn't think Diddy had enough problems with the freak-off parties, he's, potentially being implicated in the murder of Tupac.
Now, did anybody, you being out there on the West Coast, in LA, California, Hollywood, did anyone within the industry, as far as on the executive or business side, did Tupac or Suge, maybe Suge did, but just your opinion on what you saw, did anybody have a problem or issue on the executive, the industry side with Tupac or his message or music from your view back then when he was alive?
Well, he was very controversial. There was an artist prior to him from Oakland called Paris. If anybody knows Paris, he was also signed to Tommy Boy Records, the label that Coolio and House of Pain and Naughty by Nature and Queen Latifah and Digital Underground were all signed to. That had an arrangement with Warner Brothers. And, controversy sells to a degree, but people that work in the industry, like 9 to 5, don't want the extra baggage and extra drama of having the feds raiding their offices and tapping their phones and, people being raided and arrested. So Tupac, for all his creativity and musical brilliance, was kind of a magnet for drama. And a lot of people feel that him signing to Death Row was his downfall. He was putting out edgy, music with a message prior to that. Brenda, as a baby. I mean, there were some great songs, Dear Mama, all that stuff. But don't cry. But him getting in business with Suge kind of dragged him into the Bloods, dragged him into the beefs, with Sean Puffy Combs, aka Diddy. And Tupac being a bit of a hothead, it really, inflamed a lot of that drama, and ultimately led to his shooting in Las Vegas.
So about that, and then we'll get into your current, as far as how you got to LA and what brought you there, what brought you to California before. But one final question about that situation. So do you feel, just in your opinion or from what you experienced dealing on the West Coast and just in the industry in general, and like you just said, Tupac, he was kind of controversial, and sometimes it wasn't worth the headache after a while, or, in certain words and terms, do you feel as if the labels departed, or would even try to set a plot or to get rid of the whole label, the Death Row? I heard calls about the police coming through the office and Interscope and Death Row kind of having friction because of the drama. Do you think, or were there any implementation of that or indication of that from the label?
Well, I mean, Suge famously did not have a royalty department. Never paid royalties. He's like, I'm going to get you a car, but it was in his name. I'm going to get you a house, but it was in his name. So he appeared to be this giver. I'm going to take care of you. You don't have to worry about it. There was never a royalty. There was never an accounting. There was never a statement. So that was a house of cards. That was ultimately the downfall. And when you have successful artists, you're generating millions of dollars and nobody's getting an accounting or getting a royalty statement. I mean, that was among the red flags that caused Dre to leave his own label very early and leave without, I'm not taking half. I'm not worried about, any of that. I'm going to start from scratch, which he literally did with Aftermath. But, the death row offices were raided by the feds when Suge was in prison. And I have associates who were there that day.
Why?
And it was all over the news because of the implications of like the RICO Act, organized crime, the gang involvement, basically criminal activity, and the potential involvement with the murders with Notorious B.I.G. and ultimately Tupac. And there was a lot of people that came up missing at death row. I had an associate that, was trying to help Suge on something, but Suge mistook it as, kind of contrary to what he would have done or believed or said. And there was literally a hitman that came to the offices to pick up my friend, my associate. And supposedly he was going to give him a ride somewhere, but he was a street smart guy, and he got out of there real quick because he knew that if he got in a car with this guy, he would come up missing. So there was a lot of that kind of intimidation and, gang or street activity. I mean, Suge was a football player at UNLV. I mean, RBX, who was a teammate, grew up in Long Beach along with Snoop's cousin. He'll tell you that Suge was just kind of a big bully, back in college and playing football and living in Las Vegas. Once Dre gave him the green light, like, yeah, let's form a label. I'm ready to leave Ruthless. The ego and the power just took over in Suge, and he went from this kind of fun bully bodyguard, bouncer to thinking it was really all about him, the success. I'll tell you right now, Dre was the genius, and Suge never had a hit before or after Dre. Tupac was already in the camp with Interscope, so we'll give him a credit for maneuvering the All Eyes on Me album, but he never signed Tupac originally or developed him or, brought his status to that point. And really after that, after Dre left and then Snoop and Corrupt, there was nothing left. So the successes of Death Row were very, very small and very short. It was about a three-year period.
Those albums that came out after, posthumously after Tupac passed, were they not on Death Row? I know his mom, Tupac.
Well, the logo was on there, but Interscope put those out, and the estate basically ran those.
Tupac's mom, Amaru Record,
Amaru Records. Yeah, it was all tied up in court. Like, you guys don't have a contract with my son. We never got an accounting on All Eyes on Me, which was the biggest selling urban record in history.
Yes.
So they didn't have a leg to stand on as far as, we own the next 10 records that Tupac had, at the studio. Can-Am Studios was the main studio here in the Valley, Tarzana, where all those were recorded at.
Yes, sir. So before we conclude and get out of here tonight, we got about 10 more minutes on Real People, Real Stories with Jay out there in LA, Hollywood, California. Jay, just tell the people just the origin really as best you can. And I know what we'll do, people, as well, because this is some good information. I see a lot of people tapping in. Thank y'all I see North Carolina, Miami, out there, Dallas, Atlanta, all of you all. We'll do a part 2 as well to follow up on some of these Death Row, Interscope, Priority. But just furthermore, what brought you to California? What's kind of your history in a kind of brief manner, just so the people can know what brought you there, and then the things that you kind of adversity or the things you faced that you fought through to get where you're at now.
Well,
God bless you for tapping in with this great interview. It's all done through Yahweh, God first, and all the connections he's allowed me to get. You got feedback? You got topics that you want me to ask the person? You got any questions? Anything that we didn't answer in full? Hit me up. Just send an email to 8amexposure@gmail.com. It's going to be listed right here on the screen. So hit me up. Let your voice be heard in this new year, 2025. Real people, real stories. Talk to me.
Them ops sending them shots is all within his mind. Talking cancer, deception, the devil, illness, and lies. Homosexuality plus drinking, smoking combined. These the ops by design. People saying he fine. Take this medicine, stay relevant. Keep sinning with pride. Nah.